What's going on, you guys? Welcome on back to the channel. Now, the new episode for ReZero Season 4 is finally here, and with it, we have the true beginning to Arc 6 of ReZero. Now, I don't think I properly understood what the proper beginning to Arc 6 really entailed until I watched this episode, because this episode, man, is truly something special. This episode might be one of the best episodes that ReZero has ever done, simply from the voice acting to the OSTs to the animation. Everything about this episode worked perfectly with each other. Like, everything worked in tandem. There wasn't really one bad moment within the entire episode. It was just perfect. It felt like I was watching like peak ReZero again. Like, outside of Madness, it felt like I was watching that episode again. And I didn't think ReZero was ever going to be able to recapture that. And the fact that they did, and they did it seamlessly, and the fact that this episode rivals outside of Madness is crazy. I never thought we were going to see something like this again. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about the true beginning of ReZero Arc 6. So, first things first, what I really want to talk about is essentially where we left off last episode. We now see Subaru doing his iconic pose from season 1 as he's reintroducing himself to Emilia and Beatrice. What I liked about this scene is that I don't know if it's just me, but it sounds like the sound effects as well as the OST are kind of the same from season 1, or it might just be eerily identical. I don't know if it's the exact same, but if somebody knows, that'd be great because they kind of sounded the same. And if it's the exact sounds and music from season 1, that's such a good attention to detail. I love that so much. And what I also like too is I liked seeing Emilia and Beatrice especially reintroduce themselves to Subaru. We see Emilia kind of smack herself in that moment. Like, that's kind of like a good callback to season 2 in my opinion. But what I like the most is Beatrice's interaction with Subaru, because it kind of harkens back to what I was talking about with Julius before. Because follow me here, because with Julius, he has his contracted spirits. They don't remember him, but they know about the contract and they know that's why they're still there, but you don't get to see the physical manifestation of them. Here we have Subaru and Beatrice. Subaru doesn't remember Beatrice, but Beatrice remembers the contract and everything. She knows that their contract is still in place, but Subaru doesn't remember her or anything like that. And it creates such an interesting scenario now, because now with Julius, you don't really get to see his spirits. Here with Beatrice, you do get to see her. You get to see how she feels about this. You get to kind of see how everything unravels for her. And I kind of like that a lot. I think it's really good for Beatrice and her character. So I'm all for that. But there's one thing I didn't like though. There's actually one thing I didn't like about this scene. Like, Emilia and Beatrice both got their own scenes to reintroduce themselves back to Subaru. Why did Patrasche get anything? I didn't like that at all. I didn't like that Emilia or Beatrice didn't reintroduce Patrasche to Subaru, because, in my opinion, Subaru and Patrasche have such a deep and profound relationship. So the fact that Patrasche didn't really get anything, especially when the camera deliberately focused in on Patrasche, the fact that they didn't even just be like, "Oh, and this is Patrasche," I didn't like that. That was the one thing I didn't like. It once again feels like it's the anime kind of minimizing the relationship of Subaru and Patrasche. So I don't know. I didn't like that. That was the one moment I didn't really like within the episode, but that's a small moment. That's a small moment that I didn't like. But moving on from that, we then essentially get to see Subaru meet back up with everyone, right? He has to meet back up with Rom and everybody. And what I like about this moment is you get to see how Subaru not remembering everybody affects everybody differently. With Rom, you see her just you can tell that she's angry in this moment. Julius is beside himself because, once again, this is Julius losing another part of himself. Julius, as I've said before, has lost everything. He's a character that perpetually loses everything that he cares about. He lost his spirits, Everybody doesn't remember him. He got humiliated by Reid like 2 episodes ago, and now with this, you have him. You have Subaru not remembering Julius at all. This is Julius's like biggest fear within this point of the narrative, because Subaru has become such a constant in his life. So now that Subaru doesn't remember him, you can see he in this moment his world is shattering. That is like what's the most interesting part about this scene, is like the Julius effect of it all. You can tell how deeply affected Julius is by the fact that Subaru, the person that he has been counting on essentially this entire arc so far, doesn't remember him. That's like the last tether that he has left to his past life, or to essentially his whole life. And now that that person doesn't remember him, he's essentially at a loss in this moment in the scene. I love that so much, and it's conveyed with just a look, with his mouth, with his hand over his mouth, and you can tell he's like shocked. I love that scene so much. But moving on from that, we then see essentially Rom and Subaru go off on their own, and you see Rom start to confront Subaru because she thinks Subaru is lying still. She thinks Subaru has some sort of like plot or something, but Subaru genuinely doesn't remember anything. He doesn't remember anybody, but Rom doesn't believe it. Rom thinks he's trying to keep a secret from Emilia, but like she still can't accept the fact that Subaru doesn't remember anything. And then you see Rom just snap. Rom gets so angry. She pushes Subaru against the wall and yells at him. And the reason why she does this is because this is Rom essentially like similar to Julius, but this is Rom reacting in an angry way because Subaru represents like the link to Rem, essentially, right? That's essentially her connecting point and tether to Rem, because as we know, Rom lost her memories of Rem, right? So Subaru is really all that she has left, right? For memories with Rem in order to like bring like Rem back. But with this moment, she's having to accept that Subaru doesn't remember anything, and she feels like she's lost all hope. That's kind of why she kind of like sinks into Subaru in that moment, and Subaru just says he's sorry, even though he doesn't remember anything, because like you can tell he understands the gravity of like him not remembering. And dude, that scene actually hurts. Like when you go back and rewatch it, it's one of the better scenes of the episode. But moving on from that, we then essentially see what I like too about this episode actually is like the characters kind of make dumb choices when it comes to Subaru. Like they keep telling him to like stay in one spot, then he just keeps leaving. I kind of thought it was weird that not one person was stationed to like look after Subaru like within this episode. But I get it. But then again, it kind of makes sense because without that, you don't get to see what happens with like within the rest of the episode. So we see Subaru kind of go off on his own at this point, and this is when the episode starts to get crazy, right? Because after we have the whole like section of like Anastasia revealing that she's actually Echidna, and everybody's reactions to that, where you see Emilia talk about it, and she talks about the effect that Echidna had. By the way, actually, one thing that I want to talk about that scene, I like this is a spoiler, so if you're an anime only, be careful. But the one thing that I know from season two, when I went back and I read like the manga and I even read like a little bit of the web novel for that, what I know is that Echidna is actually still like walking in the world and all that. She still exists. So what I like about this scene too is that it's either Anastasia or Emilia. I can't remember who, but one of them says like, "Oh, like if you can talk to her at some point, I would love to like talk to her or something like that." But they mention wanting to talk to her and like air their grievances. So what I think could happen is I think like Echidna might show back up again, like in physical form, because if I remember correctly, she like took over like the body of one of the twin characters or something from season two, and she's just walking around as them. Because I think there's even like a side story too. So I think they might talk about that in the future. But that was actually that was like a little like aside, but I thought that was a really good moment too. Like setting up Echidna possibly for the future. I would like that. But moving on from that and moving on from the Echidna and Anastasia of it all, we then get into my favorite stretch of the episode, and it's just the entire second half. The entire second half of this episode is perfection. Every scene works, every scene is perfect. So, the first scene that I want to talk about is Subaru just getting pushed because this is the turning point of the entire episode. You don't get to see any of like the gore or anything, but you can tell that something like truly gruesome happened to Subaru after he got pushed. And we then see him essentially do a second loop and all that. And at first, he thinks it's just like a prophetic dream, right? He doesn't realize that it's returned by death, like working in its truest form. So he even was thinking about telling like the group about these prophetic dreams. But as soon as he was like really thinking about it, like there was one scene where he essentially walks in, or not walks in, but he could hear them all talking about him, right? He hears them all talking about him, how essentially like they kind of can't trust him in this moment, like, or they can't really rely on him because of the fact that he's lost his memories. So that's a really good scene. It really like affects Subaru's mental space or mental state. You can really tell within that one moment. So I think that's really good. But another thing too that I actually want to talk about too before we get into like the rest of this loop is the Shaula of it all. Like before we really get into like the second loop and all that, like the depths of it, you get to see Shaula again. And Shaula once again is right by his side. So I think something's going on with Shaula. I still think that she is orchestrating everything, but I don't know. Who knows what's going on? Because at the end of the episode, well, we'll get into that after. But yeah, after that scene where we have Emilia essentially like embarrass like Shala, and Shala kind of like runs out of the room, we then see essentially the episode kick it into high gear because like I said, after Subaru hears everything, he goes back to the staircase, right? And in this time, you could hear footsteps. Now, I don't know if this is right. I don't know if this is wrong, but what I think it is I think it's REM. I don't know how it can possibly be REM, but I think it's REM because in the opening, like at the very final shot of the opening, like I'm pretty sure that's REM. So I think the person that pushes Subaru is REM. And if that's the case, that is such a cool twist. I would love that so much. The fact that REM could potentially like just be waking up on her own just to like fuck with Subaru's head. I love that notion. It's such a good callback to season one. I hope that's something that they do. But moving on from that, you see him get pushed, and this time you get to see like the true like gore of it all, right? You see him lose his arm falls off, his head starts caving in, like the oh my like it's so intense, and it's something that I feel like we have not seen like since season 1, maybe season 2. It's such a good death in that moment. And then we get like you hear essentially like as soon as he hits the ground, you hear, I'm pretty sure you hear Subaru himself say, "Who are you?" And then he wakes this and on the third loop, you hear him just wake up and start screaming. I loved that scene so much, dude. Like cuz like this is the point of the episode where Subaru is just losing his mind. Like from it's such a good contrast from the beginning of the episode where he's his bright cheery self from season 1, and now we have a Subaru that is just completely racked with trauma and just pain from these past two loops. Like he is going through it within this episode. He's screaming, he's crying and all that. And then as soon as Emilia touches him, he remembers everything and then he like continues to freak out. But the scene that hurt the most was when he pushed Beatrice and ran off. That I thought was such an interesting scene because, like I said it last episode, but Subaru and Emilia's relationship has essentially been like the light in the darkness for the show. So seeing Subaru essentially push Beatrice to the ground and essentially running towards the darkness and running away from his light is such a fascinating choice that the show made. I like that so much. But then you see Subaru run off and you see him run up a staircase. You run up the staircase. And at first, I thought this was going to be like the stair scene that I've been hearing about, but it's not. You see him run up the staircase and like he's like freaking out at this moment. He's like laughing and crying. And then he gets to the top of the stairs and he's confronted with Reid. And then Reid is like messing with him. Like Reid sticks his chopsticks into him and is like poking his chopsticks at his heart, I believe. And it's so gruesome. The noises that Subaru makes, like the noises that he's able to like make to articulate his pain are so good in this episode, man. Like you then see Reid essentially like kick him out of the room, right? Because I think Reid just doesn't accept him in that moment. But Reid kicks him out of the room. Subaru falls down the staircase again, is lying broken and battered on the ground. And then you get this incredible scene of Subaru remembering his parents. Like I loved this scene because this is a Subaru like where you can tell clearly has like more of, or I guess remembering more of his parents. Like you get to see him like reflecting on his parents more because in season one, he didn't really reflect on them too much. But here in this episode, he's reflecting on everything. Like in the same scene that we flash back to, like all the way back in season two, it's in black and white because he doesn't remember it as clearly. But here in this episode, it's in color because he remembers everything fully. He remembers not wanting to wash the mug because he was mad at his mom. And now all he wants to be able to do is just be with his parents. He misses, you can tell how clearly he misses his parents in that moment. And it's breaking him. He's absolutely broken. And then what makes it worse is then Satella shows up. And Satella makes it even worse by her saying, I love you to him. And then, like, her hands like go inside of him and are just like caressing his heart, and it feels so invasive when you're watching like you feel so uncomfortable in that moment. Like you feel everything that Subaru is feeling. And once again, the voice acting in this scene is so incredible. Subaru's voice actors in both dub and sub are so perfect in this scene. It's incredible. I loved it so much. But what I loved the most was Emilia coming up the staircase. So Satella was essentially highlighted from on top of the staircase. Emilia comes from the bottom. I don't know what that could possibly signify for the future, but I feel like it's going to signify something. But oh my god, dude. Like this episode is just so good. And then you see Subaru back in like the room where it all started. And again, he is broken. You hear him just like gasping and like huffing, and you can tell by his eyes that he's broken beyond repair. But what I love so much is like the inner monologues within this episode. That's the directorial choice that I love the most. You get to hear Subaru's internal monologue throughout pretty much the entire episode. It's so good, especially in this second half. Like at this point, Subaru has finally figured out that this is return by death. So Subaru in this moment like just wants to die. He's walking around like wanting to figure out a way to die. And what I like about this too is like I feel like this wouldn't be happening if Otto and Garfield were here, because this is like especially Otto too, because Otto is a character that is so important to Subaru. So Subaru not having him for this like crucial like moment is so key. I think that's why they separated them and why they couldn't have Otto and Garfield here, because they would have been able to prevent this, especially Otto. So not having Otto here, you get to see Subaru go back to essentially season one again, like how he's internalizing all this trauma. Like he just wants to die. And then you see him step outside. You see him touch like the desert. And then Shaula activates something. She starts to transform, and it harkens back to what she said before, where she's like, if you break any of these rules, I'm gonna have to come kill you. And now we're finally getting that. We're finally getting the payoff to that. And I think now we're gonna see Shaula kind of go on a rampage and just kill everything in sight until she can get to Subaru. Like, dude, this episode is just perfect. Like, I could talk about this episode all day. Like, I'm pretty sure this is my longest episode for the season, and simply just because of how good it is. Like I said, the voice acting is perfect. Everything about it is so good. But like I said, I could talk about this episode all day, but I want to hear from you guys. How did you guys feel about this episode? Did you guys love this episode as much as me? And if there's anything that I missed within the episode, please tell me, because I would love to just like continue the conversation more about this episode. So, with that being said, I'm gonna end the video here. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode down in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, and as always, I'm gonna talk to you guys next time. Bye.